Today, President Cyril Ramaphosa is scheduled to address supporters ahead of the forthcoming election at the ANC's Manifesto Launch rally at Moses Mabhida Stadium in Kwa Zulu Natal. Over 10 million people supported the party in the previous general elections. And the ANC is now facing grim polls which indicate it may fall below 50%. Can voters expect the same old promises from the ruling party, or are we likely to hear a narrative about how the country has changed in the past 30 years? To discuss this, I'm joined by political analyst Dr Ebrahim Harvey. A very good morning to you, Dr Harvey. Thank you so much for your time. We have been listening in throughout the course of the week, various ANC members, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, saying that, the battle gloves are on, the ANC is ready. And also hearing from Nomvula Mokonyane that the ANC will be filling up the 75,000 capacity stadium today, as well as an overflow area, because the expectations are really high. Is the ANC as powerful as it thinks it is?
Good morning. Thanks for this opportunity and good morning to your viewers. No, it's once again an expression of gross exaggeration. It seems almost in inverse proportion to the dramatic decline of the ANC, and you've seen it in the 2019 polls, 2021 local government polls, and the generalized crisis in this country. Everything is falling apart. The ANC really is entering this election at the worst possible moment in post-apartheid South Africa. I will not be surprised, and I've been saying this consistently for almost a year, that the ANC lands up with between 40 to 45%. I've seen even a debate during the week, early in the week, that says it's so bad that it might even go below 40. But let me tell you, it's bad times. I mean, I looked at this election manifesto. I looked at the Minister of Finance's speech. The ANC has lost. If it could have introduced a basic income grant, let me tell you, it would have helped massively. This is the worst cost of living crisis ever. Standards of living, and particularly of the black working class majority, which is the basis of the ANC support for so many decades, is the worst ever. The basic income grant should have been implemented. It was not. But you can see how pathetic is it. Look how the members of parliament were ululating when Godinwana spoke about a miserable, miserly 100 rand increase on pensions. I mean, did you see what an insult? An AIDC, NGO in Cape Town, said they call it a tokenistic increase, and what a massive insult to the dignity. I mean, what do you do with 100 rand? It's just pathetic, really. I looked at the election manifesto, and you know what's very interesting? You don't have 1 ounce of honesty, where the ANC is directly responsible for the worst infrastructural crisis that we've ever had in the history of South Africa. Forget about post, even from 1920, when the Union of South Africa was formed. It's the worst load-shedding infrastructural crisis ever.
Yeah, and we heard that, Dr. Harvey. We heard that during the SONA debate. I mean, a lot of harsh criticism President Cyril Ramaphosa faced as he tried to answer some of the questions around the load shedding after just a day after him saying that the worst is behind us. We were seeing stage 4 being implemented, stage 6 being implemented, really just something that will come and bite the ANC quite hard insofar as load shedding is concerned. And of course, the unemployment rate. Listening to what the IEC has said about the cohort of youth registering to vote, around just over 75% of young people have registered to vote. And young people in this country are really feeling disheartened and hopeless as under the government of the ANC. What can we expect to hear in this election manifesto this morning?
Well, Ramaphosa is going to largely repeat what is already stated in the election manifesto and now public knowledge. And the critical thing is, I'll tell you what, I don't think you're going to have any significant change before the elections or subsequent to the election, because the ANC repeatedly from one election to the next fails to realize, and if you don't understand it as a ruling party, you cannot make headway. The biggest crisis in this country is where the heart of the ANC election should have been directed. You know, from June 2004, the townships have been burning unstoppably. It started in the Free State. You wait 20 years now. We are the protest capital of the world as a result of that. You think Ramaphosa is going to change anything significantly? No, because they have refused to admit that the reason mainly for the unstoppable township crisis is the Municipal Systems Act and Structures Act of 2000. Nobody talks about that. Not even the EFF talks about it. You've got to go and study. That is why you had City Power pick it up, all this privatized, corporatized utilities form, because they shut down, the ANC shut down all the departments of the Nationalist Party. They were doing very well, only that black people were excluded. They shut it down upon the advice of the World Bank, and they formed Joburg Water, pick it up, or the rest of the corporatized. And that is the heart. I study this area. That is, and nobody wants to go there, the ANC itself. I don't see any significant departure at all. The Ramaphosa is duty bound to repeat today at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. And I see you spoke about the attendance. Let me tell you, don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to fill that stadium. People are so downbeat, they're so disheartened that it might reflect itself. What a slap in the face of older people, 100 rand miserly increase, and then these terrible members of parliament ululating in parliament as if it, it was really pathetic to see that. And I'm happy that one NGO has called it a tokenistic and insult to those people. The basic dignity, has once again been attacked. I don't see any fundamental changes, to be honest with you. And you can see how it's caught up in multiple crises, the cadre deployment, lots of stuff.
Yeah,
I really think,
and speaking about that, Dr. Harvey, cadre deployment, of course, there's been a lot of back and forth about it. The DA yesterday saying that they are not going to back down on this, and of course giving the ANC Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, an ultimatum, release all of the details because of all the gaps that are being seen insofar as the records show that, of course, it looks like, according to John Steenhuisen, that a lot of the parts around the President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was, his role has been deleted, and they want those records to be added. And given Fikile Mbalula up until today to ensure that the full information is there, or else a further court action, and also looking at what the ANC has had to say, also speaking out about it, saying that the DA are hypocrites, and they're accusing the DA of gaslighting this matter. What's your view?
No, really, I did a couple of columns for News 24 on cadre deployment, several of them. And, so it's an area I've looked at closely. No, I think you must also not forget, when a lot of this was happening, Cyril Ramaphosa was chairman of the deployment committee of the ANC, people forget that. And in fact, if you look at how he dealt with cadre deployment when he appeared before the Zono Commission of Inquiry, it's really pathetic, There's no doubt. Let me tell you, cadre deployment lies at the heart of state capture. This is what I've argued in my News 24. Cadre deployment is so important. Those who say they're blowing it out of proportion is talking untruths. Let me tell you, it's the heart of the engine of state capture is cadre deployment. And you've got to go back to the Zono Commission of Inquiry reports and see how I'm not happy. Let me tell you, I think this Gauteng High Court decision, which they say is a blow now to cadre deployment, I think they've got problems. And you've seen Steenhuisen's response yesterday to that High Court ruling. Yes. I think the DA is now going to dig in their heels. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a supporter of the DA whatsoever. I'm very critical of them. The DA is in the right space. I'm telling you legally. And there's going to be further developments. I think this is a Pyrrhic victory. This victory that the ANC thinks it had with the High Court, Gauteng High Court, is a Pyrrhic victory. There's no doubt, and it's false. Let me tell you, Ramaphosa and all of them, I have looked at cadre deployment elsewhere in the world. There's a massive difference, and I've argued it before. If you look at the ANC, you know that they found 400 plus councillors in KZN who couldn't read and write last year. That the councillors could not read or write. So to try to suggest that the quality of the cadres the ANC's deployed to the various sides of the state is comparable to what you might have in London or the United States or Austria is fundamentally false. You know, I met members of parliament and ministers in 1994 who could not write a decent letter. They could not write a proposal. So, you know, it's false to say that, no, this thing is practiced around the world. If you dig deep into it, and you go into the detail, you'll see the ANC so-called cadres are far below educational quality and caliber and skills level of other ruling party people who are deployed in various sides of the state in other countries of the. It's very different.
Dr. Harvey,
and nobody deals with that.
What about the ANC accusing the DA of practicing its own version of cadre deployment? I mean, we heard John Steenhuisen saying that since he's become leader, the practice has stopped, and that his party did it before he was leader.
No, even Baloy, Mudval, former Mudval mayor, said, you see, yesterday or day before yesterday,
yes.
He's saying you shouldn't talk, you should talk last day because you practice the same thing. Look, there's no doubt that it's normal, but it's the quality of the people. And I can tell you now, if you look at the DA, I mean, it's mainly white party, the white privileges, the history, etc., you'll find that with the people deployed, you'll have less of a problem with the level of competence and skill than you would have with the ANC or any other party. There's no doubt about that. Where do you think Zilla and all these people come from? Go and look at the top brass of the DA. They studied at universities, Cape Technicon, UCT, etc., etc. It's a and formal education is a very important thing. Don't undermine its significance for deployment and, the ability to grasp even new concepts and to implement administration. And this is what has seriously lacked. I don't think it's really, as I said, a Pyrrhic victory. I think the ANC has got sleepless nights ahead. I think the DA is going to make still huge strides. And in fact, don't be surprised that it makes them more determined, the outcome of the Gauteng court, that many said was a stab and a setback for the DAs. I've always supported, to be honest with you. I supported since last year already. When the DA challenged this constitutionality of cadre deployment, I wrote a column. I devoted a Newzroom Afrika column to say why I supported it. It's the biggest problem. If you want to know why you've got corruption and incompetence across the state and public sectors, look at cadre deployment, let me tell you. Yeah. To that extent, the DA is absolutely correct. It's the reason why. What do you think the Eskom crisis, Transnet? What is all that? I can add a lot more. It's the results of inappropriate deployment of people who did not have the requisite skills and experience and knowledge to run SOEs. And you can see almost every SOE has been run into the ground. And who else? I mean, the former Eskom spokesperson, Sikonati, he said late last year, he said, you know what, if you want to find out about this load shedding crisis, who is responsible? ANC. He repeated it in a TV interview.
And with that in mind, I mean, a lot of promises will be made, a lot of commitments will be made as we listen to the election manifesto. How do citizens, members, hold the political parties to account for the promises that they are making? Because we hear so much of it, especially at the current political climate. Elections right around the corner, the 29th of May, is really very, very close. How do voters and citizens hold political parties accountable for the promises that they make in efforts to woo voters?
No, where they exercise their conscience and their consciousness is at the polls, I think honestly, order, you must go and look at social media and look at papers like the Sowetan, the Star, that working class people read. Increasingly, I mean, I'm not saying it now, to run down the ANC. People have lost hope in the ANC like I've never seen before. The most ordinary people in the townships, I mean, it's just the discourse, it's pathetic how people feel about the ANC. And you might see it in the results of the ANC, really. If the ANC is not trounced at the election where they are beaten by the opposition parties, don't forget, I think the EFF is going to do very well in this election. Then it's going to be through a significant and perhaps the biggest stay away in post-apartheid. Don't exclude that. People are really disheartened so much in all the broken promises of the ANC. And that's why my 2021 book is titled The Great Pretenders, Race and Class under ANC Rule. It was with that in mind, that someone in Jacana suggested that, because that's what they've been really. Great pretenders, promises broken from 1994. I mean, black people are worse off, the levels of poverty, unemployment, social inequalities. Who can believe me saying it was a little better under apartheid? It is worse today than ever before under ANC rule. It's indisputable. Yeah. And the statistics are there, Ramaphosa likes to shine, He likes to just mislead, really. He misleads people continuously, Ramaphosa, about trying to sing, the praises of the ANC, when to the contrary, what we can see today, I mean, right now we're sitting with another load shedding crisis. It's our lives, water, sanitation, sewage has collapsed across the country. Look what has happened to the Vaal River. I used to like to go there on a Sunday and go picnic. The Vaal River and dam is a complete mess. Who's responsible? The ANC was in power there, you see. So I can go on and on, honestly, the biggest infrastructural crisis ever in the history of South Africa. And, I don't want to sound harsh, but I did a column a few weeks ago where I said, and I argued, I think fairly strongly, why the ANC does not deserve to win this election.
Very well. Thank you so much, Dr. Ebrahim Harvey. Thanks for weighing in. Political analyst, giving us a sense of his viewpoints ahead of the ANC's election manifesto launch today at the Moses Mabhida Stadium.